Well, I ran across a tribute to Lucille Ball the day she passed away back in 1989. And all the major networks were showing a tribute to her, and somebody recorded them. Now, Nightline, I'm going to play part of what they did, and you need to hear what the correspondent for Nightline has to say.
Who? You knew who. You knew she had made you laugh, even if she'd done it on a TV film that was made a quarter century before you were born. Her gifts were enormous, they were timeless, they were universal. Nightline correspondent Judd Rose offers this appreciation of Lucy.
Lucy makes candy. Lucy makes wine. Lucy makes a commercial.
It's so tasty, too. It's so tasty, too. Vitamin. That's it.
Whatever Lucy makes a mess of it. We've seen these moments so often, it's as if we've lived them ourselves. We smile because they're familiar, and we laugh because, after all these years, they're still surprisingly funny. We have loved Lucy since we, and television, were young.
I'd like you to meet my friend. Shake hands with Mr. Joe. Oh, that must be the crazy redhead everyone is talking about.
Everyone talked about her, and everyone watched her. I Love Lucy went on the air in 1951. By 1952, 67% of all TVs in America were tuned in on Monday nights. It was on for just 6 years, but it's been in reruns ever since. TV's first real hit, it remains one of the medium's enduring classics.
We were just very busy doing it, and we didn't know the impact, of course, and had no idea that it was going to last any length of time. From the very beginning, we figured a year and a half, whatever, and I would have some home movies to show the new baby.
Instead, Lucille Ball and her husband Desi Arnaz pioneered techniques that became standard TV practice years later. They were the first to record their shows on film, preserving them for future use, inventing the rerun. They used several cameras and a live audience, something TV situation comedies do to this day. For that matter, Lucy and Desi invented the sitcom itself.
I ran over here, I opened the closet. Careful. What? I've got an idea. I don't like that look on your face.
Lucy was Lucy Ricardo. Vivian Vance was her reluctant cohort, Ethel Mertz. Together, they'd act out Lucy's elaborate schemes to break into show business, schemes destined to blow up or burn up in Lucy's face. Every week, Lucy would get in over her red head and go,
Ooh.
and then every week, Desi would go, Desi was Ricky Ricardo, the Cuban band leader with the mangled English. Lucy, he'd say, you have some splaining to do, and go,
Ooh.
and then every week, Desi would go, Desi was Ricky Ricardo, the Cuban band leader with the mangled English. Lucy, he'd say, you have some splaining to do.
Making this video here because I myself am somewhat experiencing or am experiencing or have experienced what people are calling the Mandela effect. And if I hadn't noticed things prior to finding out about the Mandela effect, I probably wouldn't be as intrigued or disturbed as I am about it. But a few years ago, I remember being in the grocery store clear as day and seeing Captain Crunch and the Fruit Loops box and thinking that it looked strange. Something didn't look right about it. You know, the Fruit Loops label, they must have changed it. And Captain Crunch, what is it, Captain, C-A-P-N? What is that? It used to say Captain Crunch, I remember. And I was like, oh, they must have changed it, you know. corporations do that, marketing and stuff like that. Not really a big deal, so I just played it off. And my wife and I had a son, and we're at Barnes and Noble, and I'm looking at the books, and I see the Bernstein Bears, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this doesn't look right. I'm like, the Bernstein Bears. I'm like, nah, they had an E. I'm like, it used to be the Bernstein Bears. I'm like, oh, well, they must have changed it. Someone must have bought the rights to it, and they had to change the name, but they could keep the Bears the same, but the name couldn't be the same, so they must have changed the spelling. So I I try to make sense of it, and I put logic into it, and no, I must know why. Oh, look, we should get this book, honey. It's the Bernstein Bears. I'm like, honey, look, didn't this used to be an E? And she's like, I don't know. Oh, okay. So I didn't think much of it, and whatever. And then I remember Hugh Hefner died a couple days ago, and I thought he already died. So I Google searched it just for the heck of it. Hugh Hefner conspiracy theory. Did Hugh Hefner already die? And I started looking, and all of a sudden I came across this thing called the Mandela effect. So I started reading about the Mandela effect, and I started seeing all these different labels. And all these labels that I saw, I remembered. I'm like, oh, look at that. There's the original Cheez-It box, and there's the original Febreze. I remember buying that when it first came out. Like, oh, that stuff was great. You could spray it, and you couldn't smell anything anymore. That stuff worked awesome. And I started finding out that those weren't ever a real label. That the Monopoly man never had a monocle. Like the Monopoly man never had a monocle. Of course he did. Well, no, he didn't. So then I didn't believe these websites, so I started researching all this stuff. And then I find out that these labels that I remember buying, that I remember seeing as a kid, things I remember hearing in movies that I watched over and over and over again, like Star Wars and Hannibal Lecter and Forrest Gump, that the words had changed. I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind. I had to look into it, and I researched, and I tried to find the Monopoly man with the monocle and the Ford symbol with the curly loop. It really threw me off. So then I decided that I would ask some people. So I started asking people that I saw. I would go up to them and I'd say, hey, can you know the Monopoly man? And they'd be like, yeah, I know the Monopoly man. I say, hey, do you remember him? I'm like, does he have a monocle, or does he have one of those things on his eye, or doesn't he? And they're like, yeah, he has a monocle. Like the Monopoly man has one of those. I'm like, he does. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, you remember Star Wars? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, what was one of the most famous lines in the movie? What does he say before he says, I am your father? What does he say? And they're like, oh, Luke, I am your father, Luke. And I'm like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, did you know that the Monopoly man didn't ever have a monocle, and that in the Star Wars, they never said that? And they're like, nah, that's not true. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I'm like, I went and looked on the internet, researched. I'm like, here, look, try and research the oldest, Monopoly game you can find. Look up Star Wars. I'm like, he never said that in Star Wars. And a couple people actually would get rather upset and start to argue the points I'd have to show them, and then their mind would be blown. And I'd start to ask them other things. I'm like, hey, you remember this bottle of Febreze right here? I'm like, what do you remember the first Febreze? I'm like, the first Febreze when it first came out, what did the bottle look like? And I'm like, what was it spelled like? And I'm like, how's Febreze spelled? And I'm like, F-E-B-R-E-E-Z-E. I'm like, it's a blue bottle. I'm like, it has two E's together, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you sure? And they're like, yeah. And I show them the bottle. I'm like, is this the Febreze bottle? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, this bottle never exists. And they're like, no. And then I show them the other. And I started to become even more intrigued, because now I'm meeting people who remember things the same way that I do. And I was trying to ask them questions in non-suggestive ways. And they still remember things the way I did. and they started looking into the Mandela effect. And as they looked into it, they started to become freaked out. So I know that I'm not the only one experiencing this. I found other people on YouTube that are making videos that are experiencing this phenomenon, event, whatever it is, ripple effect created by whoever. It's intriguing, it's disturbing, and it has me, looking into it. And I don't know if, I know all about the scientist that was on that 4chan website where he was talking all about he's this clone and this and that. I don't believe that. I think that's misinformation. There may be some truth in what he's saying somewhere along the lines, but I believe that there's a lot of misinformation in there as well. Is it possible that the government, the United States, the Chinese, or whoever went back in time and stopped some type of extinction level event before 2012 or around 2012, and this is the ripple effect of that, and because things are becoming unraveled, we're starting to see this. Is it possible that CERN with the super collider, it has like universes crashing together? I mean, the theories are endless on what's going on out there, but the truth of the matter is that it is happening, and it's happening to a lot of people. Is it possible that it's happening to everyone and that some people just can't recall it, or that they won't recall it? I mean, my wife, I can't even talk to about this. I tried to talk to her, and as I was telling her and showing her examples and explaining it to her and saying, look, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. She said it was giving her it gives her anxiety, because I think she knows that it's true. It's scary to believe that this is happening. I believe in God, and I believe in the Bible, and the Bible is changing. Verses in the Bible have changed. The Lord Prayer has changed. No longer says wine sacks, it says bottles. Is that true? This is wild. I found a guy that was talking about the JFK assassination and the limo, and I've always thought it was the driver, but apparently it couldn't be the driver because of the number of seats. I think there's a lot of disinformation out there, and there's also a real event happening at the same time, and people trying to cover it up, and it takes great discernment to recognize the two. Some people would think that even buying into some type of conspiracy theory, such as great as this, is not good judgment. It's that maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe all of us are crazy. Maybe the government's emitting some type of thing through towers with chemtrails in the heart and Project Cloverleaf, and they're just making everyone go crazy. MK Ultra stuff. But I'm more apt to believe that the government went back in time, or that somebody went back in time and they did something, and it created some type of ripple effect, and we're all dealing with it. Maybe they saved us, maybe they didn't. If we're all meant to deal with something, we're going to end up dealing with it. That's just the way it goes. You can only prolong it for so long. This stuff here, it goes beyond 9/11. It goes beyond Area 51. This type thing where they're changing history. They're rewriting history, literally, like pre-programming people's brains. If we all got jammed into some type of simulation, I mean, what the? So I just making this video because I haven't made videos in a long time. It's been a long time since I've made videos, since I've been out there doing my thing, but I got a family to take care of now, and I love it, and I love them, and it really disturbs me that they're growing up in this, that my son is growing up with this kind of stuff going on. Because it is going on, and I know I'm not going crazy. There's a lot of other people out there that have all the same memories that I do, all the same type of things that I remember, and you know what the truth is and what the disinformation is, and the people out there that are talking, that are the real people, that aren't screwed up in the head, have the same type of memories that I have, the same exact ones. So, you know, the Mandela effect, it's real, it's happening, it's out there, it is what it is, and it's crazy.
Me again, it's Gia, coming back at you. I don't have a story this time. I have a lot of stories I'm going to tell you, but not this time. I just want to. I just had a thought, and I was decided to come on here and talk about it real quick. Has to do with like the you know, with the reality shifting, you know, with the Mandela effect and all that stuff like that. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she's not really affected by the Mandela effect. I think she's coming around. She's starting to see some things, and but I don't think she's like. She still hasn't. She's still not fully like awake, or how you say awoken to the whole aspect of it. And I don't know. I think I to a certain extent I think she's kind of like, I know she sees certain changes, but I don't think she takes it seriously enough to me that I think she. I don't know. It's just. I don't know. I think she's saying it just to be saying it. Like, oh yeah, I see it now. You know. I know she sees certain things, but I just think. I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The reason why I brought that whole thing, I brought that up is because my question is, like, when I was talking to her about the Mandela effect and the reality shifting, the only reason I was really talking to her about this certain time is because I have a story that's related to her, and how she's related to stories that she told me some information about somebody else, and you know, about another friend of ours, and how, you know, like that, and in this. Right now, in this time, she told me this about like 5 or 6 years ago, and this reality is it's not sure. It doesn't exist. The story doesn't exist. The situation, none of it exists. And she's the one that told me. So I went back to her and I said to her, I said, do you remember telling me, you know, the story about another friend of ours? And she even said she remembered this story. So, and I was like, and then I told her to think about, I said, now, do you know, like, that whole situation never happened? You know, like I said, I talked to this you know, the same person, this third-party person. I said, do you know that never happened, that situation never existed? You know, like that, when you talk to a friend of ours. And so she was tripped out about that. And she does, like I said, she remembers telling me. So, when I was telling her that, the only thing about, like, you know, so we just went on the stripes. I'm not really that good explaining all this stuff. I wish I had some of you guys, like, as personal friends, you know, out there in YouTube world, you know, on the internet, that I could just bring into my own personal life and explain the Mandela effect or the reality shifting and stuff like that. Because when I say it, I sound like a goofball. And I don't really, you know, like, know the ins and outs and all the intricate details and stuff like that. I just know I'm affected. And like I tell you, I've been knowing it's been happening to me for a long time. Anyway, like, when I was trying to explain it to her, and I was telling her about the reality shift and Mandela effect and all that stuff like that, she goes, and she gets this big revelation, and she starts relating everything, like any inconsistency in her life, to the Mandela effect. And I was like, oh no, that's not what I wanted to do, because that's what I fear. Like, even you see on the like out there in YouTube land, and you'll see some videos. You'll see some people make videos, not trying to insult anybody, but you start seeing people, and they start relating every little thing to the Mandela effect, or to some reality shifting, or you know, every inconsistency. And I'm thinking to myself, watching the videos, like, everything. But everything I don't think is a Mandela effect. And not that I'm an expert, or who am I to say stuff in their life, but some things, I know y'all have to see it too. Y'all be looking at these videos, like, some of these kind of videos be goofy, like really, really goofy, and they be trying to, I think that's a Mandela effect. You be looking at them like, all right, now, you know what I mean? I be giving them, like, the side out, like, you know, that everything is not going to be a Mandela effect. And she started doing that when I was talking to her. So I was like, you know, we have to be careful to not start to not call it everything, that every inconsistency in our lives a Mandela effect, or say we reality shifted. And that's just, you know, I just was thinking about that, because she started Because she's married and now she started bringing up stuff with her husband, and he told, and then what we'll get is a whole bunch of people lying, or when we think they're lying and in our real life and saying, you know, you're not telling the truth and stuff like that. Oh, I am telling the truth. It must be, and that must just been in another reality or something like that. It could be all kinds of stuff like that. That's when we'll find ourselves on that same slippery slope. I just thought about that too. When I was thinking about certain things, like just different stories and people telling me different things and stuff like that, guys I've dated or family members, somebody can owe you money or somebody could have did something, they could have, next thing you know, they're going to be saying, you know, I didn't scratch your car. I didn't crash your car. That must have been another reality. That must have been another reality. I must have been shifted. I must have, all that other stuff. So I just say we have to be careful with calling everything a Mandela effect. That's all I had to say. So I'll be talking to you I'll be coming back soon with another story and stuff. But that's what I just want to say at this time. That everything is not a Mandela effect, people. All right, then. And
I think this cupcake reminds me too much of a breakfast pastry. I didn't work for me.
I know Lucy's a classic, and these were not. As Ricky Ricardo would have said, you got some explaining to do.
Lucy would get in over her red head and go. And then every week, Desi would go. Desi was Ricky Ricardo, the Cuban band leader with the mangled English. Lucy, he'd say, you have some splaining to do.